We'll call our regular meeting to order at 11:01 this morning. We have an agenda before you. I have 3 proposed additions. Item G3.1, Farming Smarter 10-Year Celebration Invitation. Item J1, discussion on meeting start times. And item K.1, a closed session item regarding the ASB member-at-large application review. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Claus?
I'll move the agenda as amended.
Claus has moved the adoption of the agenda as amended. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Claus. Moving down, adoption of minutes. Item C1, the council meeting minutes of October the 6th, 2022. Are there any errors or omissions in the meeting minutes? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the minutes from October 6, 2022 be accepted as presented.
Thank you, John. John has moved to approve the minutes of the County Council meeting October 6, 2022 as presented. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. With that, we can move down. We do have a delegation today. At 11:30, we have the CEO of Exhibition Park coming in, and we will target to adjourn the meeting for lunch at roughly 11:50, 11:55 this morning. So just keep that in mind when we're done with Mike. Other than that, we have no other firm time commitments. So we can move down now to item G1, Municipal Services. G1.1, the 2022-2023 level of service, Public Works Winter Maintenance level of service. And we have Jeremy Wixon here with us, the Director of Public Operations. Jeremy?
Thank you, Chairman Campbell. And congratulations to Council on all your appointments and new committees. So today I'm here to talk about the Public Works level of service document. This is specifically for the winter maintenance. So the level of service policy document formalizes the majority of the winter maintenance services that the Public Works Department provides to county stakeholders. As the budget is approved annually, the level of service policy provides clear direction as to the services provided. The winter maintenance level of service is unique in that it bridges 2 fiscal year periods, so 2022 and 2023 in this instance. So in this case, the latter part of 2022 and 2023, as I said. The level of service policy is intended to provide a baseline of the core services and not an exhaustive list of Public Works daily, weekly, monthly, yearly operations. The baseline provides a targeted level of service that Council approves to be provided to the service region. So within the level of service document, there are numerous details as to what we have as far as how we respond to different winter snow events or snow or ice events. This is a key communication device. I mean, in communicating to the public, this is something that's a forward-facing document that basically people can digest. We've done other level of service slides and presentations in the past, basically to try to communicate what our our summer operational services are, and this one would be specifically towards our winter operations when we essentially respond with trucks and plowing and sanding roadways, and then when we respond with grader operations on gravel roadways. As far as previous council direction, so council approved the first level of service, winter level of service on November 18th, 2021. That was shortly after the election. I believe the only councillor that was not present at that time was Councillor Van Essen, who came in shortly after that. Council had previously asked questions on what we were providing for services. The document basically illustrates what those services are that we provide to the public. And this is through evaluations with operations staff, as well as a gauging essentially of what is the best applicable service that we can provide to the public on an ongoing basis. Establishing the level of service for the county is not a small undertaking, as the demands of the stakeholders need to be considered and balanced against fiscal responsibility. We There's lots of, in previous documents, we had talked about snow removal. When we're not actually removing any snow, we're just plowing it off the roadways and it's going into ditches or road shoulders and so on. Administration has conducted several level of service workshops in regards to public works service targets for summer maintenance activities, which provides supplemental basis for the winter maintenance. So we've talked a lot extensively about the summer maintenance programs, whether that be grading, graveling, or haul route maintenance. Winter maintenance, we have not done as much workshop activity, but there's still been a bit of a context around that. Administration has prepared best case scenarios within the given annual budget to formulate what are reasonable targets or achievable for operations. I can estimate what our services will be based on typical years, and we are looking at average costing for specifically winter service maintenance. Now this, obviously in southern Alberta, we get fairly reasonable weather in the wintertime, so there are lots of times where we're not doing winter maintenance activities, we're doing more spring, summer grading activities. So those are essentially, those are put into a different budget, and we specifically hone in on the winter maintenance activities annually. And that's per the recommended targets for the budget that's being put forward today. By implementing measurable and realistic goals, the service level targets can be relatively set. Once these targets are set, this provides a baseline for our services, and then we can essentially move our level of service if council wants further services to be provided. And we always look at the timeliness, efficiency, and the type of service that we're applying on any given service. So for something for paved roadways, we use trucks and plows with sanders on those versus running graders up and down that, because then we're not getting that grip surface essentially on that surface potentially. Any questions so far? I've been talking quite a bit. Good? All right. Everybody's saving their information for the speed limit bylaw. So some alternatives. The level of service is a living document, and it can be adjusted accordingly to meet the changing needs of the region through council direction. My hope is always with any winter. I have had to come back to councils in the past to ask for a reallocation of budget, because we do have sometimes a severe enough winter that the allocated budget does not quite match what we're going to be providing for services. But in the instance of what this budget document presents, the numbers are very much in line with what I've seen over the last 3-year average. And now that I've had 3 winter cycles, I can say fairly confidently that these numbers do reflect essentially what that is. So in that financial impact, the approved budget for 2022 was allocated $400,000 for plow trucks and sanding. 2023, I put in that same estimate. And then for the grading, the grader plowing, which is the vast majority of our roadways, but not necessarily sometimes the highest activity level, I have $350,000 for 2022, and now I'm proposing $350,000 for 2023.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What percentage of the budget did we use last year on grader plowing?
It was almost 90, I think it was 90% was allocated to that amount. I would have to go back and specifically look at that amount. It has been trending down from what, now that we're specifically coding the winter activity to what it actually is, we've seen a considerable drop in it versus in previous years, the budget allocation included all of the winter grading of regular gravel road maintenance as stuff would come off. So we had started in some cases in previous years 500,000 to 600,000, and now we've got that down to more of a manageable number at 350, and I still probably need a couple more years to find a really good average on that, but my suspicion is unless we have a couple severe winters that we'll see that drop a little bit further as well. Now in the operating costs as well, this is not just, when we talk about the operating costs, this is not just for fuel and manpower. This is also incorporates the cost of the machinery into these budget line items, and that's also why some of these were lower last year, and what I'm seeing is a little bit of a lower average, but we've also seen a large jump in the cost of equipment and the cost of fuel and so on. So this is kind of bridging up into that as well.
It's time. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when I look through the maps you provided, My only question is, what about school bus routes? Like, I don't see any indication of plowing for that, or, like, how do you determine that?
We base our district grade, or for the gravel road sections, we operate under our priority 1, 2, and 3 system for gravel roads. So haul roads being roads that people track onto, those are the first ones for the graders to essentially address, and then as well as the priority 1 roadways. If you go to page, I have them all highlighted in color. If you go to page, it is 18 out of 21 in the council agenda item. I'm not sure if yours indicates the same. It's page 10 of the actual document. It has priority 1, 2, 3, and 4 roadways. And so our first priority is the yellow ones that are hard surface roadways. Then we move on to the green and the orange. Sorry, I don't have the orange highlighted on this sheet, but they are highlighted on the map. And those are the priority 1 gravel road sections and the haul road network. And then moving down from there, we basically do a triage of services down to priority 3, which would be the blue, which have the majority of the residential after that. And then moving into the priority 4, which is all the pink marked roadways. And those would be the lesser used. Some of those are residential roadways, and the ones that we do focus on during events is after we get through all of the priority 1 and 2 roadways, then we move on to the priority 3s, which may have some residential on them.
So where's the school bus fit?
School buses don't specifically fit under any of these. This is just a general that matches our services for as many open routes as we can for the higher traffic volumes.
Thank you, but I guess the issue with it is there are a lot of residents who are not on priority 1 and 2 roads, but like, I think it's more the safety of the buses and the kids than it is about anything else. Like, if they have to go down that road, how do they, like, we must have, does not the school division provide you with a map of where the bus routes are, or?
The school divisions have been pretty hit or miss for actually providing us information as to what that routing is. We request maps, but that is variable results. The last map that we actually got was for 2020, and in lots of instances, we're trying to cover off on the bulk of the population through this winter, or through this level of service document, not just specifically school buses.
Did you have one too or not? John and then Klaus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to sort of elaborate on that a little bit, I think let me reword that. Does administration factor in and look at all what the school bus routes are, or is this just strictly based off a traffic count? Because I think that is part of the challenge, is that we do have school buses that may be traveling on roads that have a lower traffic count, but the safety of the children and the safety of the bus operators should factor into that at some point or another.
We look for residences, because there is a number of the priority 3, when we get down in the priority 3 roadways, lots of these are just very low traffic volume roadways that service obscure areas. The ones that do have residences on them become a priority, essentially, for snow plowing activity. And our operators are knowledgeable, essentially, of where people are and where buses do track as well. The vast majority population base, priority 1 gravel roadways, haul road network, and paved roads have probably, I want to say, 80 to 90% of our population base. And then from there, going down on our priority 2s, there's probably another 10%, 10 to 20% of the population. When you end up the priority 3s, it's a very low volume of residences that make up that area.
Klaus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that's really important that the county gets the information from the school districts where their buses are traveling, because every year that's different, and even through the year things could change. And I would suggest that that administration send a letter to the school districts and ask them what their routes are, because how else are you going to ever build something? You might be doing roads that are not necessary at all to do with a priority that the school buses would have.
Any other questions, comments at this time? Jeremy, do you have anything further?
No, thank you for your comments on the school bus routes. I mean, I'll reach out to the school boards again and put that out there as far as the routing. Like I said, from past experience and past knowledge, we cover off on the vast majority of all of their routes. And our goal is to open up traffic for the majority, is essentially our first thing. Hard surface roadways are our #1 priority. That's where all the majority of traffic tracks to. That's where all the schools are located, are usually off of paved road surfaces. So getting access to those for the public is our priority goal.
Thank you. I've got Lauren and then Ann, please.
Thank you. So I know that sometimes there's a lot of roads that get traveled there are no students on. It's just the shortest route to get to the next stop. So, I mean, that creates a problem without knowing their routes. It's pretty difficult to keep them open so they can travel about.
Ann?
Just a question for members of council. Are you hearing that this is an issue on the school bus? Because we haven't, I don't believe we have administratively, have we, Jeremy? Or have you been getting a lot of feedback?
I haven't got any concerns, and I mean, last year was a fairly open winter, and so was the previous winter before that. Most of the times, any concerns we have from the school buses in general is gravel roads and just washboard and so on for different areas. And I could say, I mean, we are tracking concerns right now, but if I was to estimate, I've maybe heard 10 to 20 concerns per year, and the vast majority are not related to snow.
Granted, the last few years have not been normal.
Yeah, have been exceptionally open.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm obviously, from council's perspective, hearing maybe some interest in seeing how that overlaps, I guess. If the bus routes were to, align with the current priorities. I don't believe this has to be approved today. It is at council's discretion how you'd like to proceed. If you'd like to see further information, there has been a suggestion that we could direct administration to reach out to the school divisions and find some clarity there. We could move forward and approve this today. That would be at council's discretion how you'd like to proceed. Jeremy?
Can I just add one more portion into that is looking at the winter storm categories that we have, the level 1, level 2 responses. Is council happy with those kind of responses or services that we are providing, essentially? For level 1 events, those are your typical smaller snow events, 0 to 5 centimeters or 0 to 2 inches. And basically we have plow trucks out on our hard surface roadways. We don't touch any of the gravel essentially at that point. When we move into the level 2, we're looking at a 2 to 6 inch event. Then we'll do the gravel road network, and we'll put graders out on that. Priority or the level 1 events are only truck mount plows, so residential subdivisions, hamlets, and all of our hard surface roadways.
Any input from council in that regard? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And when I reviewed that, I don't have it in front of me right here, but it seemed appropriate to the weather we've been having. Should we have a drastic change in it, we will have to revisit it.
Thanks, Eric. Any further comments? Questions? How would you like to proceed? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the council adopt the level of service policy for public work maintenance based on the budget approvals for 2022 and 2023 budgets with the codicil that administration be cognizant of the fact that the traffic counts may not necessarily jive with the school bus routes, and make sure that our citizens do have good roads to travel on, especially our most youngest and vulnerable.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation with an addition. Candace, are you feel comfortable with that? Kate, you have that? Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Jeremy. We have roughly 10 minutes. We could start on item G1.2. The bylaw 2022-018, speed limit bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So today I have a speed limit bylaw to present to council. So previously, this has been developed to address the designation speeds throughout Lethbridge County. Previously, a traffic control bylaw was adopted in 1995 with several amending bylaws and council resolutions passed in prior years. That is, there are a bunch of documents attached to this that basically outline the original 1995 document as well as a bunch of the amendments that essentially came with that. Speed limits need to be clear, have clear parameters, and to have a bylaw in place to be enforceable. And that is when we do set speed limits on roadways, or we're posting speed limits on roadways, in order for a community peace officer or sheriff or an RCMP officer to enforce those, the county should have a corresponding bylaw that basically supports that those speed limits are designated at that. There are some provincial standards. Go ahead.
Sorry, just a question on that. Is that, in terms of clear, does that mean that it needs to be signed?
Does it need to be signed?
Yeah, not signed as in physically to sign a document, but actual signs on the roadways in order for it to be enforceable?
It would have to be enforceable. It would have to be enforced that way unless it is something in the lines of a the 80 kilometer an hour. Unless otherwise posted. Yeah. Yes. Good. Thank you. Okay. So the speed limit policy supports the bylaws and the parameters for speed designation. So the policy is essentially intended to be a guideline document for administration to use in bringing either recommendations to council or making amendments to the speed limit bylaw. GIS data for signs as well as the engineering design guidelines were all reviewed essentially through this, and that is why you will see so many different speed limits essentially detailed throughout this document, or through the bylaw document. So, from previous council direction, like I said, the original was adopted in 1995. Past county practice has been inconsistent with speed limits. I mean, there's been a lot of amendments to the bylaw or just purely council resolutions that have been setting speed limits in the past. Hamlets have a variety of different speed limits, rural subdivisions, and random speed signs in areas. One of the things from our county road tour, one of the easiest ones for me to point out was we drove down McKechnie, it was posted at 30, and then we turn right into the hamlet of Diamond City, and then there's a 50K sign. So there's a mixture of speed limits all over the place. So providing a little bit further background information, is there any questions in regards to any of the past bylaw documents? Some of you are familiar. Lauren probably remembers a few of these from back in the day.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bylaw 1151, defeated at second reading. Could you elaborate on that one for a moment, please?
Yep.
It's bylaw 1394, amendment to traffic control. Bylaw 1151, sorry. That one. I can't remember which one it was.
So in the case of that one, bylaw was brought forward through a council resolution to set a speed limit of 60K throughout the county, and that has been a discussion that we've had in previous discussions as well, of setting the speed limit across the county at 60K versus the 80K that we currently have not posted, but is grandfathered essentially as that speed limit on all other roadways that are not posted. Obviously, you can see from the bylaw, or it was a defeated motion when that came forward for the 60K, but that is always something that we can revisit, and it has been a past expression of interest from council to take a look at that 60K, because it would reduce, I think a lot of the feelings was also it would reduce some of the impact on the roadways if we would have a reduced speed limit across the board. Now, the question of enforcing that is then, we only have one community peace officer essentially at this time.
Clauses for.
Yeah, with that 60K, I agree with that for the big truck traffic and the semis and everything like that, but for the personal vehicles and stuff, I don't see that. It's going to be really hard to try to control that one. And I think that 80K, there's nothing wrong with driving 80K on a gravel road. without, if you're not in a big semi or anything like that, so.
Thanks, Les. Lauren?
Mr. Chair, so I would have a tendency to agree with that. I think that vehicles over 5 tons should be at 60 and the rest at 80. I mean, and as far as enforcing it goes, can't enforce what we have now, so I don't know that it's going to make a huge difference, because some people think that 80 means 100, and you know what it's like. But in hamlets, I would think that it would be just as easy to make them all 30, period. They're not very big, and there's lots of kids out there playing. I would feel a lot safer just to make them 30 Ks.
Thank you, Lauren.
Excellent, great feedback. Thank you, Councilor Strickland. Sorry.
And on in the hamlets and everything, yeah, I would, because 50 is fast, but I think that having the way in between 40, I think that is actually a pretty good thing, because it's easier to control, because I mean, it's gonna be the same story as with trying to do the 60 on the gravel roads for the vehicles. And I think in hamlets, 40 is a speed that we could, I think, have.
John and then Morris, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would concur more with Lauren in the sense that 30 kilometers an hour in a hamlet is something that I would support and would like to see. In my professional career, I've seen multiple situations where there's accidents that could have easily been avoided with the impact of pedestrians. When you're that extra 20 kilometers an hour, when you're dealing in close quarters where there's the potential of somebody running out or just walking out in between a car, makes a world of difference for you know, just the preservation of human life. So, and as you stated, they're small. There's no need and no reason to be, you know, exceeding anything over 30 kilometers an hour when you've only got 2 blocks to a major road.
Thank you, John. Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and with that, I echo what John all brought forward on that. I think 30 kilometers for the size of the hamlets, 30 kilometers is much better than 50.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the reason I brought up the defeated bylaw is why was it defeated, and what was the public impact, the public pushback on that? And from what I remember, it was fairly severe and fairly blunt. We will not be participating in it, is kind of what the gist of it was. So let us keep that in our mind. If we were to open such a thing on gravel, I would not be supporting it. Secondly, on that note with the gravel, are we lowering our limits based on safety or on road structure? And if we're doing it on road structure, we should be trying to match what the demand is rather than lowering the demand to our standards. If our infrastructure can't handle it because we can't keep it up good enough, then we're yeah, I don't have a good example for how that goes, but why are we pulling them down when we're not keeping up with our road structure, road maintenance, some of that? And we're working hard on it, acknowledged, whether it's haul routes, whether it's creative ways, but to lower it just because we can't keep up with the maintenance is also not worthy, I think.
Just cognizant of time, it is 11:30. Maybe I'll just point out a few things. So, great conversation, thank you. So the recommendation before us was to be read a first time. This is a bylaw, so there will be a opportunity for the public to voice their opinions, concerns around this. Just maybe some thought too, if we were to proceed with first reading, opportunity obviously to have some amendments at this time, maybe just some thought for that. But for the time being, I would entertain a motion just to table this for the time being. Lauren?
So moved.
Thank you, Lauren. We will table this discussion then, and for our 11:30 appointment, I will call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Jeremy. So if we move on our agenda, we have an 11:30 delegation. Item F1, we have Mike Warkentin, Lethbridge and District Exhibition here to present to us this morning. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone. Hey, oh,
It's actually open mic, just pull it up.
okay. Should I wait till?
The floor is yours, Mike. You make that decision.
Okay. Don't want to get into a rhythm, and then there we go. No problem. All right. Good morning. Thank you very much for having me back. I feel like I was just here, but it's good to be back and see you all. I think one of the most important things I want to touch on before I really get into it is the connection. And I want to thank all of you in the room, not just members of council, because I've seen in my time back in Southern Alberta the relationship grow between our organization and the county. I think a lot of that has to do with Anne's effort, but all of you. And I appreciate your participation again in the Whoop Up Days Parade Pancake Breakfast. I brought my muscle behind me to ensure that you're all going to be flipping pancakes again next year. But also in our 125th anniversary a couple weeks ago, it was great to see some of you out, and then the welcome I get when I walk into this building. So thank you very much. But I do need to confess a secret before we get going. I did get the opportunity to chat with Councillor Van Essen on our 125th tour, and he actually conceded to me that we are building a better event venue than his. So.
Or compliment.
But that being said, we need to be able to deliver at the level that you do for us to be truly successful in this. So thank you for the compliment, but we've got a lot of work to do to match up. The challenge with this conversation is that we're building a tourism asset. We're building a tourism asset at the time when we're going through a massive identity crisis, and I think tourism is a topic of conversation across the street right now. And there's a lot of conversation about us. Realistically, we're building this tourism asset for the next 50 years. And the misconception is that we're building a metropolitan convention center. But the reality is that we're building a convention center with metropolitan assets and amenities. But really, we're doing so 200 feet approximately from the county line. And it's a distinct advantage that we have. Different than Calgary or Edmonton or Winnipeg or these places that try to tell an agriculture tourism story, is that we can literally point out of our meeting rooms or our conference rooms to the county and show irrigation pivots and real farmland. And so we tell a different story. Sorry, I'm flipping my slides late. As an agriculture, we have the distinct advantage that we may live within the municipality, but the audience that we serve is proportionately county members. And as we look to expand the investment in the region, that investment is going to disproportionately flow into the agricultural sector, because it is our regional distinct advantage and it is our mandate as an organization. I certainly don't need to tell you folks that. You know it better than I do. But if I could tell a quick story. The other day I was asked to attend a tourism strategy meeting. Again, as I said, it's a hot topic these days. And we were reviewing the terms of reference of this committee, and I said, with all due respect, we aren't doing enough. We aren't challenging the norm of this region. We aren't addressing the true challenges on growth and expansion of the tourism industry. Our hotel rooms aren't enough, and as we begin looking at the business of this facility coming on, we quickly hit a ceiling. And so right now, our ceiling has to do with 500-person events. That's today. But as we grow into the coming years and look to bring on 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 4,000 person events, we're going to hit a ceiling in the number of hotel rooms. And so I laid the challenge to this group. I said, be bolder and reach further. 5 years from now, when we've secured those 1,000 person events, or 2 years from now, we'll need to advocate and lead in the direct investment strategies of new hotels, restaurants, and amenities for people in these businesses coming to this community. I tell this story today because our problem may be hotel rooms. A lot of people think it's airlift, but I would challenge that. Yours may be water access our priorities are aligned because we're committed to drive that agricultural investment through the tourism lens and bring people really to see the ongoing work of Canada's premier food corridor and the other work within the county. And so we're a key advocate to do so, and we need to be an advocate to those challenges that you as the county are facing, not only in communicating the importance of investment, but driving that further investment into the county and into the big agricultural sector. So I'm actually standing here today telling you that I'm going to put pressure on those challenges even further. So I'm going to need to stand beside that and advocate along with you for some of the challenges you all are facing as a council and as administration. Because I actually would say our goal, when successful, is increasing the importance of those things like water investment along the Highway 3 corridor. And I assure you, I'm doing a poor job here. I assure you, as we bring more visitors to the site, we will continue to put more eyes on Lethbridge County, likely more so even than the city of Lethbridge, further increasing your industrial and commercial tax base, and ultimately, hopefully, in additionally adding to your residential tax base. So I'm looking to formalize our partnership, and I lay down that same challenge that I did to that tourism group: be bolder and reach further. Today we are asking for a $2 million investment in the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center. The investment is today really for the long-term growth and the long-term advocacy in the agricultural prosperity of the region.
Mike, is that, were you clicking earlier there? It just wasn't moving. I'm not sure. Were you
No,
on the- okay.
this is my last
Okay.
point. Thank you,
Thank you.
Reef. And so very specifically to that ask, to reach the full potential of this, we've seen escalation in our project, and this graph represents that. The solid line represents the budget that has been committed by 3 different parties. The dotted line is where we're currently projected to be. And so there's a few added aspects of the project into this. One, the big one being abatement in the building and the removal of the existing pavilions for to increase the available parking space once again for that future potential that we have in the space. I am happy to take any questions about this, as I know it's a big financial ask, and I'm happy to take any questions that may be there.
Thank you, Mike. I would open up to council. Any questions of Mike? Cool. Doesn't matter.
Oh, thank
Go
you,
ahead,
Mr.
Lauren.
Chair. So, Mike, looking into the future, you did talk about, 2, 3, 5 years down the road, the need for additional hotel space.
Yeah.
Is there any thought of building a hotel on the property anywhere, like say where the grandstand is or somewhere in there? Because it's, I hate to admit it, but it's reaching its useful life. Like, I've been to lots of conventions, and I'm sure everybody here is the same, but it's really nice to have a hotel pretty close to the convention center.
I thank you, Councillor Hickey. There's a couple points in there that I'd like to address. The first being the hotel piece, the second being the grandstand and its useful life. The hotel piece, so our building project was developed very specifically so that 2 towers can attach directly to it, 2 hotel towers. And so it has been designed to take one on the south end of the main corridor for those that were on the tour. The big connection corridor, essentially where the Ward Brothers construction trailer is one pad, and the other one would be at the end of the salon corridor, where the basically between where AHS is operating the West Pavilion today and the new building. Further to that, we have undertaken a feasibility study for the investment opportunity in a hotel property immediately. And so we know that this is a challenge, and we need to work with some of the lodging partners in the community. Obviously, they've had a tough couple of years, and so we do believe it is financially viable to build another property. So you could see us in the very near future shopping for investor opportunity there. And so, yes, there has certainly been consideration to it, to answer your question directly. Just a matter of timing and working with partners, and obviously understanding our role within that greater tourism discussion that's ongoing. And the second piece to the useful life, I do want to say our lease partners in the Rocky Mountain Turf Club have been great partners. They're under lease till 2024. I know that they're currently thinking of some capital plans for their facility, and they have the option to extend to 2029. Our board of directors currently has struck a ad hoc committee, the Strategic Development Committee, looking at the master planning of the overall site and what the 10, 20, 30-year outlook for that site and the use of acres. Should horse racing not exist on our site, but what I'd say to that today is that they've been great partners and continue to be great partners, and we have no reason that horse racing wouldn't be a part of our future. But to the point about useful life of the facility, it certainly needs a capital uplift, and that will be part of our longer-term master planning. I hope that answers your questions, Councillor Hickey.
Klaus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with that said, and the future of maybe having a hotel, what is the capacity in Lethbridge of the hotels that we have here?
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to answer that in a couple different ways as well, if I could. And I'll preface it with it's our understanding of these numbers. And so it is our understanding that there's approximately 1,800 room nights in the city. And that is every motel up to the Salmon Signature, which I would, Salmon Signature, their coast, tend to be considered the marquee properties, and the new ones out at 43rd. And so of caliber, when we're talking about a business traveler coming into the market, whenever we've approached a bid, the number's been approximately 500 to 550 rooms available at any given time in a multiple star rating hotel. And so that's really the number that we look at when we look at the capacity that we can bring into the community from a business traveler perspective. And so that's why I say our hotel room space in the longer term is likely a bigger barrier to us than airlift, because the airlift will come as the people come, and we've had multiple conversations with WestJet on that. But right now our capacity that we're looking at is about 550 being at the top end of a conference that we could book today. And so within our zoning for our development, and I actually, I guess an extension of Councillor Hickey's question, within our zoning and our parking development permit, we've included up to 250 hotel rooms in that zoning and the parking space for it. Because we knew that this was going to be a barrier, and quite frankly, as we learn more and more, conferences actually won't book in a space unless there's a hotel attached to the facility, not just on property, but actually attached to the center, which is why that was such a key piece for us, and why that will become an increasingly more important element of our planning. You're very welcome. Thank you.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike, I wonder if you have numbers on how many of those 550 available rooms are centered or very close to the east side, where, like within 2-3 kilometers of the facility.
I thank you for the question. I don't have that number off the top of my head. I have heard it before, and I want to preface that with the number of rooms that I'm referring to, that 550, tends to be the number of rooms available, not necessarily the total number of rooms in the community. It's the number of rooms that we have to put in a bid package that is kind of over and above the regular day-to-day business that the hotels are seeing. And that's within the LAA, because we are partners with the Lethbridge Lodging Association. And so call it that corner at 43rd and Highway 3 by the casino there. I want to say there's 6 properties in there, but not all are members of the Lethbridge Lodging Association. And then the other properties that I believe get counted in that number are the Holiday Inn at the corner of Mayor McGrath and Scenic Drive, the old Ramada, the Coast Hotel on Mayor McGrath Drive, and the Salmon Signature downtown. It's my understanding. I can come back with further answer on that, though, if you'd like.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. thank you for bringing up, all our little details. Now you have a high standard to hold yourself to.
Yes, I
at
do.
least. So, how did you come up with your ask number for us? And do you also have a per capita number on investors or grants that you have gotten?
So, thank you for the question, Councillor Venison. The general principle behind this ask, one, I wanted it to be a round number. I'll start there. I didn't want to ask for 2.473 million. But what I wanted to do was look proportionally at the population base that the county had within their jurisdiction compared to the population base that the city of Lethbridge had and the grant that has already been granted by the city of Lethbridge. So at roughly 10% the population base, and they offered 25 million. We came in a little bit lighter than 10% of the ask, or excuse me, of the grant that they've given us.
Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. So this $2 million, is this like one check, or is this 200,000 over 10 years, or what's your, just to clarify that piece?
Thank you, Councillor Sayers. That we could work on with council or administration. One of the main reasons I put this slide in here was for our expense schedule over the next year and a half, really, as we go through demolition into 2024. And so ideally it would be in that window, not over 10 years. But we could certainly work on a potential payment schedule within the project schedule, which is expected and approximately mid our fiscal 2024, which would be spring of 2024.
Anne?
Just a inquiry of council, if council would like administration could bring forward a report kind of outlining the pros and cons of actually making the donation, but also how we would do that.
Thank you, Anne. Any further questions or comments from council? Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mike, what would you use this money for, and how would the county be recognized if they did make a contribution to this project?
Yeah, thank you for the question. This donation would be utilized 100% in project capital costing. We are, to put it quite bluntly, we've seen significant price escalation on the non-stipulated sum items of the construction. And so the province of Alberta money, for example, can't be spent on technology in the building. And we've all been to conference centers. Technology makes up an important piece of what those centers are, or their attractiveness from a competitive standpoint. And so that is a place where we've seen significant escalation, quite frankly, because we weren't able to order it already and spend any of the provincial money on it. The demolition and asbestos abatement of our existing facilities to make them more attractive from a parking perspective, I think that is actually a key competitive advantage that we can offer compared to the Metro Convention Centre in Toronto or the Calgary New BMO Centre. Is we have available space for parking, and we, talking about useful life in our facilities, we're past it in our existing pavilions, and so those are slated to come down. And there's been more capital demand in those projects than anticipated as we went into asbestos abatement studies and some of that. So it would be capital specific. In terms of the recognition of the county, I would leave that open for discussion, because I think I would need to understand more about how the county would like to be recognized in that. The opportunity to grow this relationship, and the reason I hit on that piece at the start is I believe limitless, and I think that this is a great starting point. But I think, to the point, the people in this room understand that the agricultural industry that really is the cornerstone of this community happens in the county, and I think we need to start doing a better job of telling that story. And so I would I would open that piece for conversation as to how would council or administration like to be recognized as key partners, not just in the development of the building and the project itself, but going forward. Thank you.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also cognizant of our time. Real quick, save you a couple $1 million. Rename the pavilions into parking garages, and we have indoor parking.
I appreciate the comment. If only it was that easy, Councillor Van Essen.
Thank you very much, Mike. I think I might have a little bit of a different perspective maybe than the rest of council, save for Councillor Sayers, having spent the last year, I guess, as council's appointee to your board. You know, I suppose, you know, I've drank the Kool-Aid, as it were, a little bit. And I believe my role as council's appointee to your board is to bring the county's perspective and be the voice for the county there. But then also, once I am, you know, wearing my Lethbridge exhibition board member hat, I think it's to advocate and do my best on behalf of that board and your entity. And I must say that I've thoroughly enjoyed my time as the county's representative on that. I have tried, you know, my level best during this time to be an advocate for your organization, and I intend to do that to the, you know, utmost degree moving forward. It's been a pleasure to work with yourself, the board, and your staff. I think you have a terrific team there. I think just for council's benefit, I think it's important that, you know, the naming on this is obviously intentional. The agri-food hub. But it's not just lip service. I know from my perspective, from having a board that maybe isn't the most tied into agriculture, I've seen in the last year some significant efforts to learn and embrace that heritage, those roots, and what that impact of agriculture is, not only to the city of Lethbridge, our region, but the province as well, just what an economic driver agriculture is. So I applaud you for, like I say, not just for the sake of a naming gimmick. This is intentional and it's purposeful. Your group's intention to make this closely tied to agriculture is greatly appreciated from my perspective as a producer. Further, I think I should highlight the fact that if you go to a farmer's market on a Saturday, you walk around, I think a vast majority of the people that are there are our ratepayers, are our citizens, not only, you know, selling the produce, selling the vegetables, making the products, making the handmade goods, but there's a real Lethbridge County feel there, and I think it's something that we should be proud of, that we have a place, a home for those people, you know, to sell those goods, to sell their wares, and also the events that I think you currently hold, and that the intention is to hold the whole moving forward. Ag Expo, once again, a prime example of just those are our residents, those are our ratepayers, those are our businesses that invest that money and time to be an exhibitor, but also to pay that gate fee, to buy that ticket to get in, and you know, to conduct business. So the ties are deep, the roots are deep. I am very excited for what potential lies ahead of us in building that relationship, continuing to be an advocate for agriculture, both on our side of the table and yours. And like I said, I'd just like to thank you. I'm very impressed with how you've gotten to this point. I realize the struggles, the outside factors that have you know, caused us to be in this situation. Is I don't think anyone saw this coming. So your resiliency and your efforts moving forward are greatly appreciated. So just from myself, like I say, with that unique position, I want to thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much, Reeve. The feeling is very mutual on that. Thank you.
Any other discussion, questions for Mike? As Anne suggested, you know, it is somewhat commonplace. If there is an appetite of council, if you would like to explore this further, we could direct administration to bring back that report, some potential funding sources, potential funding options, schedule of payments, all those kind of things. We could you know, vet that out a little further in a future meeting if that's your desire. If not, we can move forward, but I would open it up to council how you'd like to proceed. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make that motion that we direct administration to proceed. with the bringing back a report to the council.
Thank you, Mark. Any further discussion? If not, Mark has moved to direct administration to bring back a report regarding Exhibition Park's funding request that was made today to a future council meeting. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Mike. Thanks, Sydney.
Thank you all.
And with that, we will call a recess for lunch, and we will resume our meeting at 1 p.m. Thank you. Call the meeting back to order at 12:59, and we were on item G 1.2. Could I get a motion to lift that from the table? Lauren? Lauren has moved to lift item G 1.2 from the table. Any discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that we read the speed limit bylaw 22.
Oh, sorry, let's vote. Lauren made a motion, so we'll, any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Sorry, getting ahead of myself. Bylaw 22-018 be read a first time.
Thank you, Eric. Eric has moved the recommendation that bylaw 22-018 be read a first time. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Oh, sorry. Yep.
So we're not gonna be able to put in the speed limit of all the hamlets?
I am looking for direction from council. essentially,
So I guess Eric has made a motion to give first reading as the bylaw currently sits. That would go to a public hearing, obviously, and then council could make amendments, give second or third reading, choose not to progress. Or we could choose to possibly amend Councillor Van Essen's motion. That would be up to Council Morris.
Well, good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason that I like that, because then the public will know of it, and if really the public is gonna be against it, they might show up. And I remember when we talked about one time the speed reduction at 60 kilometers down for the county on all gravel roads, there was only standing room here only, and that made us decide not to go to the 60, we kept it at 80 at the time, yeah. So, if we had that one that put the hamlets in on there, well, maybe we're gonna get a lot of people coming in who would be in favor of that, and then be easier to handle.
And then Colossus, please.
To Councillor Zeenstra's point, and I think Councillor Van Essen asked about this earlier, we, in the past, I don't know, we are going to be doing a very robust communication strategy, which is including cards that council will be able to give out to people when they ask about the speed bylaw, and it's like a link right to the survey. But we do have where our expectation is if first reading is passed today, that we will implement this right away and have a very robust communication strategy so we can get some feedback from the public.
I've got Claus, and then John, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for the bylaw to be read a first time, wouldn't we be better off splitting them up? Because we have the hamlet bylaw, and then we have the gravel road bylaw.
Jeremy?
You can contain everything under one bylaw.
So
Essentially, the speed control, or the speed limit bylaw could cover both all your gravel road infrastructure and your paved infrastructure.
So just for my sake, Jeremy, can you clarify, in your current bylaw as it is, what is the speed in the hamlets?
The speed limits in the hamlets, if you flip to it's actually on Schedule C, my recommendation was to put them at 40, because that seems to be the trend across the province for for urban areas. And that is, in a lot of instances, to differentiate between school zones and playground zones, and then the speed limit throughout the area.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But passing first reading on this, that does not, if I understand it right, preclude us from making amendments and changes to this for second and third reading, if I'm correct on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're correct, yeah.
I think Morris's comment is just that if the intent is to eventually go to 30, I think if we started from that point prior to the public engagement session, I think that's kind of what you're suggesting, Morris? Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, just a question, how is the 30-kilometer-an-hour zones being accepted in Coaldale? Like, because they changed all the school zones and playground zones to 30 Ks. What is it, 7 o'clock to
They went
11
to
o'clock
play-
at night or something
From
like
school
that?
zones to playground zones.
Yeah. Is it?
Yes, all school zones to playground zones. just for consistency. They're all, what's the overall feedback?
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything from the town outside of, actually, I haven't heard anything. Even as a resident, I haven't heard anything. I mean, most people go 30K.
Morris, if you would like to see that change made, you're more than welcome to propose an amendment, and we can vote on that amendment if you would like to see that now. But that would be in your discretion.
It sounds like to me it can be done anytime after it anyway, so let's leave it as proposed, and we'll go with that, and then we can make amendments later on.
Any further discussion from council? So Eric has moved that bylaw 2022-018 be read for a first time. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you. And I just wanted to just add one more piece of information. If you are looking at this or you're getting questions from the public, I did tag in all of the areas that were essentially amended by a previous resolution or a previous bylaw are all highlighted on here. And it marks out each one. Like for instance, the Hamlet of Shaughnessy in bylaw 1151 and resolution 449/16, it was reduced to 30K. So all that information is in the bylaw itself right now. So if you're getting questions on what's this, what's that, right? I mean, there is information in here, and it's been vetted essentially as far as in correspondence with resolutions of council and bylaws, existing bylaws.
Thank you. Ann?
Just to clarify, it's more of a historical, it is a historical,
Yep.
but with regards, so to save confusion when we do the public engagement, it'll be this is what we're proposing, so that the public isn't, wondering this whole history and what happened. It'll be very clear. Bylaw has been read first time, here's what council's proposing.
Anything further on this matter? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One final question for, so zones that are 30 other than playground and school zone, we're gonna be bumping them up to 40, is that correct?
This will all depend on what
That's the
council.
proposal?
The only one that would be going up to 40 would be the Hamlet of Shaughnessy.
Okay, the
Diamond
rest
City right
are
now
at
is
50 and they're coming down?
Well, there is no consistency. I mean, we've got 50K signs in Diamond City, we've got 50K signs in Monarch, and 40K signs in Monarch. I mean, there's a variety of different stuff.
So, but we're gonna blanket it now?
No, until this bylaw is passed, we won't be doing.
But the intent of the bylaw.
intent of the bylaw is
Yeah.
to make it one with the exception of playground zones.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Klaus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, what are we doing with the subdivisions? Is that included in here?
Residential subdivisions are listed on here
Okay,
as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, just for clarification.
Yeah. And industrial parks.
One thing that we will do for council is just do some key points from the bylaw, so it'll be clearer, because I'm in the same situation. What's here, this is what the proposed bylaw has listed.
Awesome. Thank you. And we can, with that, we can move down in our agenda to corporate services. G2.1, the audit services contract. And we have our manager of finance and administration, Jennifer Place. Jen, good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have before you a request to extend the current agreement with KPMG LLP for their auditing services for a 1-year period. We do have a 5-year contract in place, which is expiring on December 31st, 2022. And the reason for the extension is that administration, as council is aware, is currently working on a financial software conversion. And there are a lot of intricacies, I guess you could say, with regards to the general ledger and the accounting, and ensuring that everything rolls up nice and tidy for the purpose of financial statements. So some consistency in the auditing services would likely be beneficial both for the county's financial reporting as well as for administration themselves. As a point, I do have a resolution here with regards to the 5-year contract, or that was approved. There was a typo in that resolution I pointed out, but it was to 2022. And as per Section 281 of the Municipal Government Act, it does state that council must appoint an auditor for a municipality, as well as I mentioned the financial conversion. Now, I do want to mention to council that in the upcoming year, I would propose that a formal request for proposal go out for auditing contracts after this 2023 audit year, if this is extended. I think it's beneficial, and since we also, as council may recall, adjusted the terms of reference for the audit committee to be more involved in that RFP scoring process. I think previously administration did that and brought it forward with the recommendations, but I think the way the act reads and what we have done with the terms of reference for the committee, it would be beneficial. So I guess the recommendation that I've brought forward today is that council extend the appointment of KPMG LLP Chartered Accountants as the auditors for Lethbridge County to December 31st, 2023, and that the extension includes a 2023 audit, which will take place in March and April of 2024. There's a letter attached also from KPMG with regards to their rates. I believe he had it at $24,500, which is well in line with what we've been charged in previous years. It's slightly above, obviously. I think we all know inflation has hit and costs are going up. But the 2021 audit was $24,375, and previous year was a little bit higher, but we were also they took over the drafting of the financials in that year, so that was just a little bit of an adjustment for that.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions from council?
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Go ahead, Morris.
So I might have missed something on it again, Jen, but why not just, we're happy with what they've been doing as far as I know. Why not go another 5 years, do that?
Councillor Zeenstra, through the chair, the reason I brought forward the recommendation just for a 1 year was so that the audit committee would have the opportunity to do a request for proposal if they choose to, or if council chooses to. So I could bring that back again next year for a council decision. I personally don't think it's bad practice to put it out to other firms and see what can be offered. At the end of the day, it is 100% up to the council to appoint who our auditor is.
Any other questions from council? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that council extend the appointment of KPMG LLP Chartered Accountants as the auditors for Lethbridge County to December 31st, 2023, and that extension include the 2023 audit, which will take place in March and April of 2024.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation. Any further discussion? John has moved that council extends the appointment of KPMG LLP Chartered Accountants as the auditors for Lethbridge County to December 31st, 2023, and that the extension include the 2023 audit, which will take place in March and April of 2024. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And moving down, Jen, item G 2.2, assessment overview project reallocation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anne is going to join me for this one. So within the 2022 approved budget, an operating project for property assessment overview was included. I know, as council may recall, there was some discussion during budget deliberation around assessment, and it was for $35,000, which included the MSI operating grant. So myself and Anne, as administration, began discussions around the overview, some considerations of what that would look like. I think when we went in initially, Anne and I sort of had different ideas, and we did. So we had further conversations. On a few occasions we met to discuss, and then we felt that it was difficult to determine exactly where to begin in order to satisfy maybe what council is looking for or looking to get out of it. I did include also some information which I think maybe council has seen before, from Municipal Affairs under the assessment portion. I think Ann shared it some time back, just with regards to the auditing portion that takes place at the municipal and provincial level. So all of the assessed values that each municipality collects and determines has to go to the province, and it has to be within a range that they find acceptable, and that is part of their auditing process. And they have in fact come and reviewed in more detail at Lethbridge County, and I'm sure other municipalities across the province. So I just included some information about that, but it's all on the Municipal Affairs website. But as you can imagine, it's extensive, so I just took a couple blurbs there. So I guess, I don't know if you want to add anything at this point.
We wanted to make sure that this project we were undertaking met council's needs. And I know we've had several conversations about assessment, and the $35,000 is basically a drop in the bucket to deal with assessment. So we needed some more specific parameters to discover what it is council would like out of this, and if so, we need to determine, is this budget sufficient or not sufficient?
Thank you. Questions from council? Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the one thing that I'm hoping that will be resolved of this is we seem to have a great deal of inconsistency as to the value of land when we subdivide a piece of land and we collect
MR?
MR on it. Like seems like the value's all over the place. Would this address that?
Possibly to a degree. I guess the best answer I can give right now is that assessed values are based on the previous year's market, so they're never going to align with the current day's market value. So when it comes to municipal reserve, I'd have to get Larry's help there on what the guidelines of the MGA say, but perhaps having it assessed or appraised at market value rather than using an assessment may be more beneficial moving forward and with sales of land. But I can't speak to exactly why or what those inconsistencies are made up of. I just know that assessments are based on the previous year's market and updated accordingly based on, so Les will use sales that have come through on properties, and he will adjust based on those.
Just to follow up, I guess the only reason I asked the question is we had a piece of property out by Ready Made, which was valued at $30,000 an acre, yet we had one in Section 26, which was only valued at $7,000 an acre. And I don't see how that's relevant, because, I mean, this is so much closer to the city, it's already been zoned for development, and the other isn't. Like,
So why?
that's the inconsistency, and why is that such a big deal?
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey, through the chair. I guess I didn't quite fully understand the question, but I'll make a note of that for sure.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Talking on getting an appraisal on the land versus our assessment, really, an appraisal is also looking at last year's values. Any appraisals I've ever ordered, they're still only judging them off of MLS listings. Do we at the county get to see sale values that don't go through MLS listings?
Councillor Van Essen through the chair. So what the county uses is when we receive land title changes, the purchase price is on that land title, and then that's what gets incorporated.
So we have significant better data than the average appraisal to make these judgments.
Possibly. I don't know what the appraisers are. I was under the assumption that the appraisers used like properties and current when they were appraising, but I'm not an appraiser.
Anything I've ordered, it's just they go by anything that hit MLS and sold that they can pull up, and it is extremely challenging for them to find relevant ones. Whereas if we can get every property sold, we should be able to narrow this down pretty good. And I can echo Lauren's concerns on inconsistencies. It's just some of them, you know better. You know that this is selling for significantly more than what it's coming in at.
So one question I had is, just for that to Councillor Van Essen's point and Councillor Hickey's point, is that it seems like it's not really a matter of how the properties are being assessed, it's more the inequities when there's sales happening. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that seems to envelope it.
Okay.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When this first got tabled to us, I was very vocal about the fact that I didn't think $35,000 was anywhere near sufficient to do what we discussed and we tasked, but, and I still feel like that. The challenge that I see on this is when we're looking at assessed values of properties versus the market value of properties, we are supposed to be following market value, but there seems to be a consistent disjointedness of that, if I can make up a word. When you're looking at a market value where, a similar property is sold for example, $500,000, but then when we're looking at and getting assessment information and the assessment's coming in at $150,000, and I get that may be over-exaggerating the situation, but there seems to be always a consistent pattern that comes before us where the assessed value of what we're dealing with and what we're looking at for properties is wildly lower than what properties are actually selling for. So what I would like to see in this is procedurally, what are we doing to sort of, I don't know if it's a matter of narrowing that gap, but just tightening up our process so that we actually know that the number is something that's credible, as opposed to just, it's just been like that for 10 years or it just hasn't been reviewed. Because the perception that I see is there is no correlation.
So the question is more of how we are handling our procedures rather than the assessment from the province.
Right.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I can see how our budget to go through and itemize every single available property, there's just no way that budget's going to cut it. That's an astronomical job. However, if we start raising values only based on when an application comes towards us, and then we do an assessment of the area, now those people who just try to do a development, they're right up at max or at market value. So somehow or other, if it's possible, it would be good to try reevaluate the region, but I'm afraid it's unaffordable to look at it properly.
One of my suggestions is that maybe we bring back a report outlining how we determine these before we go ahead and spend $35,000 unnecessarily. And then should council feel that there should be some changes in the way we're addressing the land sales and the land assessment, then we could move forward. That's an option that we could put on the table, because what I'm hearing so far is that it's not a question of the assessed value and how the province and how we handle it. It's more of how we're handling it with land sales and the inconsistency of that. Would you agree with that? Yes? Yes. It's land sales and subdivisions, okay.
Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with what Eric just said. I think if we could look at the land sales, and it's not going to be consistent for everybody, but if you know what land is selling for, when it comes with the title, it should be fairly easy comparatively, rather than asking for a market value, because you're going to get a market value. It's all over the map. So if you actually get the actual value that it's sold for, I think it's much easier to do. And yeah, at times there's going to be nothing for sale or has sold in that area. So, it's kind of a guessing game at times.
But I think we almost need, in order to make sure that we're being fair and equitable, that we have a policy in place that keeps us consistent. I think it's more of a need for a policy rather than investigating how we're assessing. Would you? Yep.
Anything further from council? Yes, Jen?
I was just going to add to that, and I don't think this applies in all of the cases. One probably wall we're coming up against by using assessment is the frozen farm land rate. So I think if we do have a policy in place, maybe through whether it's through planning or the assessment side of things, is that we look at market, not assess value for property sales more so.
And I do believe I've asked, Larry, I can pick your brain, I've asked a few times if we have a land sale policy or bylaw, and we do. So we'll bring those both forward to council to have a review, if that's satisfactory.
Anything further from council? If not, Jen, go
Sorry, I
ahead.
just have one point. If we aren't moving forward with this project as a contract thing and doing it
I
in-house.
wouldn't say that yet.
Okay.
I
Do
would
we
put
wanna
that
wait?
part of the,
Okay, I just was wondering about what to do with the
just
MSI
in
funding.
case.
Yeah.
Jen's she already had the 35,000 somewhere else, but we'll
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah.
Just slow
I'm
down.
thinking budget.
So, I think seems to be some consensus for directing administration to bring this back. Is that
Probably will be,
what I'm
yeah.
hearing? Would someone like to make that motion? Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we direct administration to bring back a further report on this matter.
Thank you, Mark. Any further discussion? Mark has moved to direct administration to bring back a report on our assessment overview to a future council meeting. Any further discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
you,
Thanks,
Anne.
Ann. Ann, you want to stay there? We can move to G3 administration, our addition, the Farming Smarter invitation.
This was a late edition. We just received this. Farming Smarter is celebrating 10 years. They are looking to invite members of council to a event at the Norland Historic Estates. It's $125 per person, but it is happening on November 4th from 6 to 11, and given everybody's schedule, we didn't want to wait and bring this to the November 3rd meeting because it just would have been too tight.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion from council? John and Klaus?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With this one here, do we want to spend that kind of money that everybody would be able to go, or are we good with a couple of representatives to go? And in my opinion, I think if we would have 2 people that would go there, I think that would probably be sufficient.
Thank you, Klaus. Any further discussion? John?
I was just actually going to move that any member of council that wished to attend this be allowed to do so.
And you are making that motion then?
I am.
Okay, thank you, John. John has moved that any member of council wishing to attend the Farming Smarter celebrating 10 years,
It's a 1920s theme.
1920s themed
just so
event
everybody aware.
at the Norland Historic Estates on November 4th, be authorized to do so. Jeez. Any further discussion? Yes, Mark. Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Just a clarification, was that 2 or anybody in council? John's motion, just to clarify.
The motion I made was anybody on council that wishes to attend.
Okay.
And Klaus's was 2.
Yeah, you didn't make that motion, eh, Claus? You just kind of made that for
No,
discussion.
Yeah, that was a
Or-
suggestion.
It wasn't a motion though, correct? Okay.
No.
Any further discussion? So John has made a motion that any member of council wishing to attend the Farming Smarter Celebrates 10 Years event on November 4th at the Norland Historic Estates be authorized to do so. I'll call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Ann. We can move down to our correspondence. Another invitation, the H1 Coaldale District Emergency Service Awards Ceremony invitation.
Sorry,
That's okay.
I don't have that.
In your packages, you have the 2022 annual awards ceremony invitation. It's for like I said, the Coaldale District Emergency Services.
Thank you.
Saturday, November 26, 2022, at the Gem of the West Museum in Coaldale. Silent auction at 6, dinner at 6:45, sorry, and an awards ceremony at 8 o'clock. Deadline to RSVP is the 15th of November. Traditionally, in the past, members of council have attended this. I know I've attended multiple times. I know Lauren has as well, and other members of council have in the past. It's a nice event. They do celebrate their members through their awards ceremony and recognize their contributions. Usually the Reeve, a representative from the county, makes a little bit of a speech, as well as the mayor of Coaldale and other dignitaries that are there as well. How would you like to proceed? Not everyone at once. John?
Seems to be my theme this afternoon. I'd like to move that any member of council that wish to attend this be allowed to do so.
Thank you, John. Any further discussion? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this a situation where we want at least one member to correspond with administration to make sure we have somebody in attendance? Yeah?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay,
very nice.
We'll
Yep.
deal with that after the meeting.
Yep. So John has moved that any member of council wishing to attend the Coaldale District Emergency Services Awards ceremony on November 26th be authorized to do so. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And as noted, with both of these two last items, if we could connect with Candace, and if you are interested in attending, do that sooner rather than later. That'd be greatly appreciated, so that we can firm that up. Thank you. And we can move down to item I1, the Lethbridge County Council attendance update for September. And Lauren, if you'd like to start.
I just attended 2 council meetings during the month, the Ag Service Board, went to the Iron Springs Parade, Foothills Little Ball Municipal Association meeting. That brought up some issues on how that organization is kind of ran, and hopefully we'll have some better answers following the RMA convention for that. And went to Employee Recognition Night and attended a couple of Green Acres meetings, and I think the best thing I'd like to talk about is the blanket exercise. I thought that was very well done, and certainly to me made me look at the other side of the picture. I guess when you get the white card and all of a sudden you died from smallpox and you have to go sit down, and then they come along and take half your land away, it was rather alarming, and I had never thought about things like that before. It was overall a really good exercise, I thought.
Thanks, Lauren. I guess I could go through a couple of points, like county council meetings, our ASB meeting. On September 14th, I had a chance to meet with the executive director of the Alberta Sugar Beet Growers, Melody Garner-Skiba. This was through her regular cycle of meeting with elected officials in the area, as well as MLAs, RMP, and other members of that sort. Just her opportunity to kind of get a feel for what's going on in the area, potential collaboration moving forward. ASBG does play a role in Team Alberta and their advocacy efforts. So Melody was more than happy to try and align with some of the things we're working on, and find ways where we can work together and find some synergies where we can advocate on behalf of not only the sugar beet growers, but the producers, farmers of our region. That was a good chance to catch up and talk with Melody on some of those issues that affect both of us. RMA virtual town hall on LGFF and APPS. I'm sure these will both be hot button issues as we move into RMA here in the coming weeks. On the LGFF front, the initial intent was for AM, the Alberta municipalities, and RMA to submit a joint submission on what we'd like to see in LGFF. That did not happen. Instead, there was 2 separate proposals. They were just too far apart, and RMA thought it was in the best interests of their member municipalities that they step back from those discussions and submit on their own. Just really revolved around the size of the pot and the desire of the Alberta municipalities to capture a larger share of that pot in comparison to the rurals. As far as APPS, the government has been doing some very robust campaigning and information sessions over the summer and into the fall here around APPS, and trying to engage stakeholders on what they would like to see out of that. The RMA's stance, while there is an official, their official stance was that a majority of the membership was not in favor of APPS, and that possible transition that I feel has softened slightly, and that now it has shifted to more of what do rural municipalities really need out of policing, and how do we get that out of the current model or out of a potentially different model in the future. So conversations continue to evolve around that. So we conducted the emergency program exercise here at the county building. The members of the emergency management committee, we were here that day while the exercise was being conducted downstairs. We did play a small role in that through the mock scenario, the mock disaster, I guess you would say. I participated in a mock media session, and we also kind of went through the motions of how that day would progress, how the communication through county council would work. It was a great exercise. It was really well done, and the feedback from the field officer from the province was very positive and very complimentary towards everyone from throughout the region that participated. Moving down, maybe one other one that I should flag was on the 26th, Ann and I sat in on a virtual meeting hosted by Vulcan County. Vulcan County, along with a number of other rural municipalities and urban municipalities throughout the province, are in talks, negotiations, planning, either very early on in the planning process, some municipalities further along in trying to regain control of emergency services, the provision of ambulance services within their municipality, within the region. Vulcan County just, I guess, left the table open to neighboring municipalities to gather their thoughts, where they are, where they're not. The town of Coaldale is traveling down this road. Obviously, the city of Lethbridge has their model that they currently have, and then with the provision from AHS and other municipalities. So ongoing, the province has indicated that they are willing to open some of these discussions, negotiations potentially. And I think with the change in leadership, I think from the messaging to this point is that will only, the speed of those discussions will only accelerate moving forward. The 26th, I spoke at the federal electoral boundary redistribution public hearing. Mayors from Pitcher Butte, Nobleford, Barons also spoke at that. I guess we're aligned in our assertion that we are well served with the current map, that all of our municipalities, the county boundary serves as the line for our MP, and we feel that that's a huge asset as opposed to having a western portion severed off to Foothills and a northern portion severed off to the Bow River riding. The MP, Rachel Thomas, also spoke very passionately at that hearing, and every speaker, I guess, had the response from the panel. The question was, are you in favor of overlooking the swell that we've seen in population? If you look at the numbers, we would be have more constituents within that riding than what the target is. If the target is 115,000, I believe we'd be closer to 123,000. So the question was, would we be willing to sacrifice that rep by pop in favor of having that the border compromise, I suppose? And everybody was in favor of keeping the border as it was rather than trying to compensate for the representation by population. I would echo Lauren's sentiments on the blanket exercise. It was very well executed, and it was a great learning opportunity. Thank you to our HR department for putting that on for us. And our Team Lethbridge mission planning, our Team Lethbridge mission is still a go. However, we have shifted dates, and we may continue to shift dates. That's still unclear, but we have moved the dates from the beginning of November till the beginning of December, just to try and accommodate for the late announcement of cabinet, which is upcoming in the 21st, I believe. So, sorry, is it tomorrow? Yeah, 21st. So that is the plan with Team Lethbridge. Still a go on that, but obviously in flux just with the change in leadership and new cabinet coming in. Thanks. Moving on, Division 3, Mark.
Thanks. The one thing I didn't include was September 16th, the employee recognition night. That was a lot of fun. It was nice to interact and just have a social event with the staff and their families. And I know that I was really worried about the weather and everything else. A perfect night, and it worked out really well. So thanks to her for putting that on. The emergency program exercise that came into that appointment was how that was playing out. So it was great to sit back and watch that sort of play out. When the media came up, the people had played the media were just going after Tory hardcore. It's pretty funny. We had a CBC political on it. But it was great to see that and see that interaction, potentially if there's an emergency situation, how that plays out for council. So I really enjoyed that. And then on the 29th, the South Shore board meeting, that's been a work in progress. It's been a year that I've been on that committee, and taking that one to just sort of get my way and start to know some people and have better understanding of the groups that I'm in.
Thanks, Mark. John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple highlights for me was on September 13th, I attended the Lethbridge County Town of Coalhorse IDP meeting. I saw great value in that and appreciated the time that they took to meet with us as their problems are our problems. Them being a smaller municipality within our municipality, we share a lot of the same issues. And it was very nice to sit across the table from them and have some discussions about that. And I look forward to that continuing with all of our smaller municipalities. And on September 21st, I had my regular monthly Community Futures meeting. Wonderful highlight on that is there was a program put forth through Community Futures for women entrepreneurs. There was a small amount of money that was set aside for that, and it was almost instantly oversubscribed, and it is a 100% taken advantage of by entrepreneurs in the region that are female, that are starting out their own businesses or running through. And I'd like to see some more funding for that, because that was a program that we could use probably 10 times the amount of funding for, just from the number of people that wish to subscribe for it. And that's a wonderful thing to see, that that gender disparity is starting to close up. So and that would be it for me.
Thanks, John. Thank you. September 1st, Lethbridge County Council meeting, and the 15th, September 8th, Ag Service Board. That one was somewhat interesting as we finalized our changes to allow members at large on the board. That to me was important. And the 16th, Employee Recognition Night. Good evening, and enjoyable to have it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The boundary change, I went to that one, that was a round table that we had there, and I think Tori, you covered it good, but I think there was one addition. There is still an opportunity for you to email to the commission your pros or cons, whatever you want to put forward in that one. And then, like John said, we had the Coalhorse IDP, and we had the Regional Waste Management Committee, and that was about it.
Thank you, Claus. Morris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. September the 1st, Lethbridge County Council meeting. September the 8th, Agriculture Service Board meeting. September the 10th, Iron Springs Parade, which was actually pretty good for the size of town and the people was there. The few people that live there put that together. That's amazing. Pretty good. September the 13th, Lethbridge County Town of Coalhorse IDP. September the 15th, Lethbridge County Council meeting. September the 16th, for the Littleborough Municipal Association. September the 16th, Employee Recognition Night, which was a good night. I thought it was well accepted, and it was a good gathering and good go-arounds. September the 22nd, Emergency Program Exercise, and September the 28th, CARES Blankets Exercise. Thank you.
Thank you, Morris. And maybe just with Morris's comment there, just to send a thank you out to the committee here at the council, or at the county that put together that employee recognition night. I know a lot of work went into that, sourcing the food, the event, the location, the logistics of it. I know that's not a small task, and as it was alluded to, just trying to plan for the weather and plan accordingly. I understand it was a large undertaking, and it was very well executed and well done. So thank you to everyone that from staff that was a part of that. Much appreciated.
Okay, I hear you loud and clear, and that's great. And the other one I would like to say, give a big thank you to the Iron Springs Parade Committee, because that keeps the whole neighborhood alive, and yeah. So I would like to see that.
Thank you, Morris. Thank you for your updates. We can move down to J. We have one item of new business. J.1, meeting start time discussion. So I guess like I said, it's a discussion about the start times of meetings. There was some appetite for council to have this discussion, how we handle that timing moving forward. So I would open it up to council for that discussion and potentially some direction as how you'd like to move forward. Morris?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'll start, and it's always good to hear that people do want to see changes, and that's maybe good. But we made a big change here a couple of years ago already. How many years is it? 4, But anyways, at one time, and Lauren probably knows best, but it's been always at 10 o'clock, and then they wanted to bring it back to, or they want to move it up to 9 o'clock, and well, I was one of them who was really opposed to that, because I have my little duties to do in the morning. I gotta meet for coffee, and I gotta meet for breakfast, and but well, honestly, that's pushing it. So at 9:30, I'm very happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Morris. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the commentary when the discussion around it was for us new councillors is by waiting till 9:30 to start. If we could start the meeting at 8:30, a lot of the times even we start at 9:30. If it's a shorter meeting, we're done before noon. So then that doesn't involve stopping for lunch or incurring the cost of the lunch. So just 8:30, everybody's up at 6 o'clock in the morning anyway. So I think that was sort of a proposed time was at 8:30, unless you're a dairy farmer and then you're up at crack of noon. But anyway, that was just the proposed number. It was to move from 9:30 to 8:30 to make it a little earlier. So,
thank you, Mark.
The only thing I would caution is I'm not opposed to early, as you know. I'm here, but I think if we're thinking about the public, we should, 9 o'clock is probably more of a reasonable start time for people to get here for the meetings. So just keep that in mind when you're discussing.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we had that discussion. 8:30, I'd love to see it, but I am willing to compromise and look at a 9 o'clock start time. That's quite feasible. Even with some chores in the morning and such. And then secondly, it can really open up our afternoon if we finish by 12:30 and there's work to do. It could shave hour and a half off of our day to go about our regular labors. So I would like to propose 9 o'clock, and I guess I'll make a motion to that if that's what it is. Motion to move meeting start times for the next year. Is this a 1-year thing? Is this permanent?
It'll be part of the procedural.
Until changed, until modified. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that meeting start times move till 9 a.m. Until seen different.
Any further discussion? Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm more in favor of the 9:30 start. I think it gives the public a better opportunity to get involved if they're going to be. So I don't see the 9 o'clock as a good start time.
Thanks, Lauren. Mark?
My response to that would be if the public are that engaged or want to be that engaged, I don't think time would be a factor. If you ever felt really strongly about an issue, that half an hour isn't going to affect anything. So anyway, I'm supportive of the 9 o'clock start time.
Thanks, Mark. Anything further? Any other comments? John? Claus? Okay. It happens every now and then. So Eric has moved to adopt a 9 o'clock a.m. start time for council meetings moving forward until change is deemed necessary. Any further discussion? I will call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Did you vote? You voted in favor. Okay, thank you. So that is carried. Thank you. Okay, and now moving down, we have one closed session item. So I would entertain a motion to go and enter a closed session. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move into closed session.
Mark has moved to enter a closed session. Any discussion? I will call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Thank you. And Mr. Wixon, is that you? Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Candace. when you're ready. Okay, I am looking for a motion to adopt the at-large members to the Lethbridge County ASB. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the 3 candidates for the ASB, external candidates or resident candidates, be Ken Coles, Logan Miller, and Dan Chapman.
Thank you, Mark.
Members at large.
Lauren?
You know that Eric did not participate, Lori.
Yeah, note that in the,
And then the letter should not be signed,
okay. So we have a motion from Mark to appoint Ken Coles, Dan Chapman, and Logan Miller as the members at large to the Lethbridge County Agricultural Services Board. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried? And I believe that's the end of our meeting.
Maybe. Just
No, we're gonna, do you have something?
Just a quick comment. I mean, I think we should recognize the fact that we did have 9 applicants for the ASB, and that it was great to see that kind of public
Yes,
endorsement from council.
absolutely. I would echo what Jeremy has said. It was, I think this was a great endeavor on behalf of council to reach out to the public and try this. And it was very exciting to see that level of engagement from the community, and to have 9 people put their names forward is very encouraging, and hopefully we can do more to this length in the future. So thank you very much.
Technical point, we should appoint Will.
Thank you. So we would need a motion to appoint Wilf Schulten to our agricultural
Appeals Committee.
Appeals? Agriculture Act? Act Appeals Committee? Okay. Someone like to make that motion? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make that motion.
Thank you, John.
You need me to read it?
That's okay. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried? And Morris, you had a motion to adjourn? Thank you very much, everyone. We will motion to adjourn at 2:20. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Thank you.